The first term is educational technology and instructional technology. Who would try to differentiate between these two? Anyone? So what is the meaning of educational technology?
Is educational technology based on the text that we use to educate students during either in classroom or somewhere else?
All right. What about instructional technology? Anyone? Would you give it a try?
Uh, I think instructional technology is the design we use for technology, the design or software we use for utilizing technology in education.
All right, that's very good. Thank you, Muhammad, and thank you, you Van. Now, let's make it very simple to you for you to understand. They are pretty much the same meaning, but education technology is more about the tools, the technology itself, while on the other hand, the instruction technology is more about the technique or the method, the approach that we use. So they are pretty much the same, but this is the slight difference between these two terms. The first term, educational technology, is about the computers, applications, tools in general, LCD, whatever tool that you are using. Instructional technology is, you know, more about the technique itself, how to use it, what are the principle to use it, what theory that I am actually trying to utilize inside my classroom and so on. Okay. Now we have a different two terms. What about education technology and technology in education? Anyone would like to give it a try?
The technology in education is something like you explain how does technology works to student or anyone else, how the machine works or something like that.
Exactly, exactly. That's amazing. Any shot. Okay. So it's more about studying the technology itself. Let's say, for example, when we study computer science, that's the difference. But when we talk about education technology, how to use the technology, what kind of technology, and so on. So this is the main difference between these two terms. All right. If I ask you a question, how would you define education in general based on your understanding? What is education to you?
May I try?
Yes, please.
For me, the meaning of education is we transferring knowledge or information to someone, for example, students, to develop their skills, information, and also knowledge.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. So education is actually like any type of other communications in life where we transfer knowledge from one part to another. And education does not necessarily to happen inside school or universities. It happens everywhere. When your child or your little brother or sister sees you, do something in front of them, they are trying to actually imitate you. They're trying to do the same. This is education. So education is actually transferring the knowledge that you have, whether directly or indirectly, to somebody else. But when we are talking about education inside our classroom, of course, we are directly, purposely trying to facilitate the learning environment. We are trying to transfer whatever the knowledge the teacher has to the students. Why? Because we want to change people. We want to change their behavior. We want to change their critical thinking. We want to actually improve their lifestyle and so on. So it's all about developing a new experience, changing their behavior, developing their, let's say, problem solving skills, to how survive in life, how to be better person, how to actually serve the community. This is all about education. So education, if you could define it in a simple way, you could say that it's a way of communication that the teacher could transfer the knowledge that he or she has to our students for the purpose of developing or enhancing their critical thinking, problem solving, and so on. All right, we have defined the education. Now, what about teaching and learning? What do you understand when you hear the term teaching and learning? What are the differences between teaching and learning? What is teaching and what is learning?
Uh,
Uh,
sorry, you can go ahead.
teaching, for me, teaching is like you're giving some knowledge or you sharing something. Learning is in return you are receiving it, receiving knowledge.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, go ahead, Jovan.
Doctor, that's exactly what I wanted to say. I say that teaching is, giving knowledge, and learning is accepting the knowledge from that.
That's good. That's good. So exactly, teaching and learning is about sending and receiving. The whole education process is kind of, a model of sending and receiving. Always there is a sender and there is a receiver and there is a message. The message is the content. So teaching and learning is the core of the education process. While teaching is imparting the knowledge or skills that you have to your students, with considering the environment, the uh, the approaches that you use, the methodology, and so on. While learning, on the other hand, is receiving the knowledge from whatever sender that we have. And the main purpose of learning, we actually all learning in one way or another. There's no limit for learning. We are always learning all the time. You know, it doesn't matter how old are you, or what stage that you in life, you always keen to learn more, because when you stop learning, that means you are actually dead. I mean, your brain is dead when you stop learning. So we are always keen, we are open to learn every, let's say, every hour, every day, every week. We learn something new. This is how we actually survive in life. Now, there is a difference between teaching and learning. Teaching obviously is about the sending the information, and learning is about receiving this kind of information. And the main concept here is uh, the there's something in common between teaching and learning, which is teacher always has the responsibility about what to teach. Okay, because it's very important, guys. Teachers always will be looking at, like, role models, especially when you are teaching like, small kids. They will look at you like something huge, big, always have the knowledge of everything. We have always looked at our teachers like, they have all the knowledge in the world. This is not correct, however, but when we at that, let's kind of when we are young, we would always look at our teachers like, they have all the knowledge in the on earth. Okay, So you need to be careful of whatever you do inside the classroom because you are directly uh, teaching them about the objective of the lesson, but indirectly, if, for example, let's say if you are smoking uh, during the break and the some kind of students saw you doing that, they will definitely going to smoke one day only to actually do the same thing that you have done in front of them because you are a role model to them. Okay. Now, regarding the teaching and learning process, we have the teaching and we have the learning experience. Anyone could differentiate between these two? Anyone?
Sir.
Yeah.
So I see teaching is more like a one way, from the educator, from the teacher to the student, while the learning experience involve um, the teacher giving information or giving knowledge to the student, as well as the student itself themselves learn through other various materials, for example, or sources.
Great. Yes, yes. Thank you. So it's teaching is not necessarily to be a one way. Actually, one way communication is, let's say, an old fashioned way of teaching. But yes, it's always has one direct from the teacher to their students, while the students can learn from like other sources than the teacher, him or herself. They have the book, emails, internet, videos, photos, and so on. So learning experience happens from all these kind of sources, not only from the teacher. What about technology? What do we mean by technology? And if we actually combine technology and education, because we have defined education now, and when we define technology, we can come out with the general meaning or the general definition of education technology. Now, technology is a systematic way of solving problems, and it's always has been referred to as, let's say, machine language, yes or no, one or zero. Okay, this is how we solve problems. When we combine the technology definition with education, we come out with educational technology definition. So educational technology could be defined as, you can come out with your own definition, or you could refer to any of these definitions. Let's say one definition right here is the study and ethical practice of facilitating learning and improving performance by creating, using, managing appropriate technological process and resources. So it's always about using technology as tools inside the classroom, of course, to enhance, to improve, to assess your educational process and to help you achieve your objectives at the end of the day. Okay, we have a lot of education technology definitions. And if we can notice that all these definitions focus on how to improve. When we talk about technology in general, we're always talking about something to improve the education. Otherwise, we would stay with the whiteboard. You know, we would have stick to the old-fashioned way of teaching. So technology, when you try to define education technology, always look for something to improve the effectiveness of the education process, teaching and learning. This is the main purpose of educational technology. Now, Instructional technology, as we referred at the beginning of the class, is more about the technique, or the approach. And it's always referred as a small part of education technology. So education technology is the main area, the big subject here, and instruction technology is one topic or one part of it. And if you can see from the definition, it's about the theory, the practice, the approach, okay? Now, this figure right here, you can understand the whole, all the definitions that we have mentioned in this class from this figure. If you look at the bigger circle, which is the education technology, this is the big umbrella, the big subject. Okay, inside of it, we have instruction technology, which is more about the technique, the theory, the theoretical, background or framework on how to use technology. Because we cannot simply, pick any technology and start to use it inside our classroom. We need some guidance. This guidance, we look for, theories, previous literature, and so on. This is what I mean by instruction technology. And then we have learning technology and methods. Inside of it, we have the media itself. So media, or the whatever technology, the technology itself, it's a very, very small part of the education and technology subject, but it has the biggest role. But in order to actually achieve this role, you need to know how to use the technology. What are the principles? What is it like appropriate for the students that you are teaching? So many questions that we need to answer. Hopefully, at the end of this course, education technology class, you will be able to answer all these kind of questions. All right. This is the like a summary of the education technology and instruction technology. Now, the field of education technology has like an engineering, for example. We have computer engineering, we have so many types of engineering comes and belongs to engineering in general. Now, same goes to education technology. Education technology is a big field. We have some people are experts in resources management. We have some people are expert in curriculum development. We have some people are expert in making videos, posters, graphic designs, like, which we call media production, and so on. So education technology is a big field. You cannot find one education technologist and ask him to do whatever you actually refer to as education technology in general, because we have different people, different specialties. Each one of these education technologists has one special, let's say, field or area. Okay. Now we have two different terms when we talk about education technology. We have the process and we have the product. Anyone can define between these two, differentiate. What is the difference between process and product when we talk about education technology? Anyone? When we ask ourselves, what is the process of education technology? Or what is the product, final product? Anyone?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. For me, in my opinion, process is more like the way it goes through, the way we learn it, like how learning skills or I'm sorry,
It's
like
okay. Take your time. Relax.
The process is like how we go through it, how it was built, how
Exactly.
everything was built. The product is like the final result of the
Exactly.
process. So yeah, thank you.
Great, great. Thank you very much, Fiza. Okay, let's put it that way. The process, as our friend said, is the way that we go through the whole process of education technology. We need to refer to many things actually. We need to refer to the technology itself. We need to refer to the instructional technology, which is the theory or the model that we are going to utilize. Okay, let's say, let's give you an example here. I want to develop a website to teach my kindergarten students. Let's say English. Okay. Um, what I need to do is I need to go to a specialist in education technology, and ask him to design the website for me. He's not going to design the website for me by himself. He is going to refer to education technology specialist. He is going to refer to a programmer. Okay, this is what we call the process, and he is going to refer to the theory as well. Okay, this is what we call the process. But the final website, when it's done, I can give it to the student. This is the final product, the material. Okay, when I give the website to the students, they have no idea how long I've been working on this thing, how many people have been working on this thing. This is the real meaning of the process and the product. You cannot simply say, okay, I have a bachelor degree in education. And I can program as well, so I will develop my own website. You cannot do that. You need to refer to educational technology specialists, because it's more about how to teach, what to teach, and are my students are going to, you know, um, communicate with this website? Is it usable for them, or is it very hard for them? So we need to study the students' background as well. How, what age they are. We need to use a lot of figures, images, audios, videos, and so on. So there are so many consideration you need to consider before you produce a product in education technology. This is um, you know, the difference between the process and the product when we talk about education technology. Right? This is the first slide, which is, a very summarized introduction about education technology. What we are going to talk about next is the communication process. Now, communication process is very, very interesting topic, because it's like, the standard definition of education. Somebody, when we asked about the meaning of teaching and learning, you have already defined there are certain, let's say, parties of education process, which is the sender, the receiver, and so on. So in this slides here, we are going to learn about the meaning of communication, the models of communication, let's say the main items or the main components of communication. Communication process and learning. If I ask you guys, what do you understand when you hear the word communication? What is communication to you?
Sharing information or knowledge from one to another.
Exactly, sharing information. What else?
Like the ways of people having conversation, like people having same topic of conversation.
Exactly. What else?
Delivering something from a sender to a receiver.
or imparting skills or knowledge from, yes, from, exactly. So communication process could be anything that needs more than one person. If you walking with your friend and talking with each other, this is communication. When you go back to your house, talk to your mother, your brother and sister, this is communication. So communication is pretty much any social relation that we actually do in real life. And in order to understand the meaning of communication, we need to understand the main components of communication. We do have the sender, we have the receiver. This is we agreed on from the beginning of the class. We have the sender, which could be the teacher, could be the parents, okay? And then we have the receiver that is going to receive the message. At the middle, we have so many theorists that come out with, let's say, extra components. One of them say it's only the message. So receiver, message, and receiver. And one of them say, no, we need to consider the medium of communication. What medium that we are using right now, for example, we are using WebEx, we are using the internet as a medium of communication. Okay, and some of them added, okay, how do you actually know if this communication is successful or not? In this case, you need feedback, you need response from your students. That's why I ask you guys questions. If you are able to answer my questions, then this is the feedback. This is the meaning of, okay, my communication process is going well. You can understand me, you can understand my language, my explanation, and so on. So these, let's say, 5 elements or components are the main elements of any successful, communication process. Clear, guys? You want to ask any questions? Any questions?
So far, no. From
Okay, good. Good. Now, when we talk about the basic communication process again, this is from a different perspective. Okay, when we talk about the process itself, the let's say the way it goes, it starts with a message. I have a message. Okay, I want to deliver it or to transfer whatever message I have to a different party. What should I do? Now, let's say I have a book, and this book has, let's say, very, very complicated information. For example, in this course, if I give you the book of this course, which is about 300 pages, I'm not saying that you are not going to understand. You are going to understand, obviously, but you need very much time to read the whole book. That's why we summarize the whole course in this PowerPoint slides. Now, this process called encoding the message, simplifying the information. When I took the book and I prepared the slides, I encode the information from the book to very simple points. And then when I meet with you guys again, uh, let's say discuss again with you about the content of the course, this is the process of encoding. When I encode the message, I let it go to you. And then for you to be able to receive this encoded message, you actually need to be focused, you need to be alert, and you need to be active in the class. This is what we mean by, let me switch off my phone, sorry. Okay, this is the meaning of uh, decoding the message. Number 4 is encoding message is received, the message that I have tried to simplify it for you. And then when you receive this encoding message, this process is called decode. Decode means successfully understandable. Okay. If we could, define the meaning of it. So these are the 5 main basic communication process. I need maybe 1 or 2 of you guys to explain it to me so that I make sure it's clear to you before we go farther. Anyone? Anyone can explain basic communication process? What is encoding? What is decoding? So on.
Explain about the basic communication process, right?
Yep.
So, to me, basic communication process is like the first person who is a sender, uh, who send the message to someone, but then the message will be sent first to the transmitter or something like that, and then the transmitter will process the message before sending it to the person who was who are who is supposed to get the message, and then after everything is done, the receiver will get the message, and the whole process just repeat after and after. So that's like the basic communication process, I think.
Okay. Okay, great. So what do we actually mean by encoding and decoding? We have one message here in the chat. Let me see. From May. Yep. Okay. Encoding, simplifying or summarizing. Exactly. Exactly. And decoding, successfully receiving this simple message. Yes. That's great. Thank you, May. Now, with the first communication model. Now, before we go to explain about the models, I want you to understand that all the models, have pretty much the same components, but from different perspectives. Okay, for example, Osgood here, uh, consider the communication process as a circle. And we have the message, and we have the encoder, interpreter, and then the decoder, which is pretty much the same. Okay, the message and then encoding the message, medium of communication instead of interpreter, and then we have the decoder. No, no, no. You don't need to memorize the models. Just understand them. I think I have. Oh, well, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's finish with Osgood. I'll go back. So it's about the same components, but with different, let's say, naming or different terms. Okay, and then we have Shannon here. Shannon has something to add about the communication process. Now you don't need to memorize the models, but you need to be able to refer what, for example, Shannon has channel in his model. For example, here Osgood has interpreter. So you need to refer each model to what does he actually add to the communication process. Okay. Now Shannon has the same elements, but instead of the medium of communication, he has something called channel. Channel is exactly the same as the medium of communication, but he supposed that the channel might be affected by external, let's say, factors. For example, we have noise. Now, uh, let's say we are in the class, okay, face-to-face class, normal classes. And then we have constructions just beside our class. And I'm trying to actually raise my voice. I'm trying to explain. I'm using microphone, but it does not work. This is the construction work could be as a noise that could actually affect the channel of communication. You cannot hear me. Whatever I do, you cannot hear me because we have external factor that is actually making noise to our class. This is what we mean by noise. Now, if this noise has gone away, we will go to the normal communication process, and then we could actually, let's say, examine the whole process by getting the feedback from your audience, whether they are students or whatever. Okay, clear, guys? What do you mean by channel and the noise that could affect the communication model? This is from Shannon perspective. Clear?
Yes, Dr. Clear.
Okay, good. Now we have Laswell's. Laswell's has the same components, but with a different terms. He could actually uh, refer to his model by WWCWT, which is who, what, channel, whom, and then the effect. Who, which is the sender, and then the message, and then what is the medium of communication, which is the channel, and then the receiver, which are the audience, and then the effect. What is the effect here, guys? What do we mean by effect?
Feedback.
A feedback, yes. If I can measure if there is actually a feedback from my students, then the effect will be high. Okay, then the whole process of my communication is working at the end of the day. But if the effect is low, then I fail as a communicator to actually send out my message. Okay, now we have this model, which is a bit complicated, but it's almost the same. The three main, if you can see the blue items, the sender, message, receiver. They are the main components of any communication process. Now, inside the message, we have a signal. What do we mean by signal here? If you remember the noise. So what I mean by signal here is, am I able to actually send my message out peacefully? There's no noise, there's no factors that actually going to stop my message or affect my message. This is what I mean by signal. And then we have the encoder and decoder. It's almost the same. The final model that we have is called Perlow's SMCR. This is very, very important model. There are so many, studies till now under. See, the date of this model is 1948, but it is actually very trending in education. They are still using this model to conduct studies, whether it's online learning, educational, let's say classic face-to-face learning, and so on. This model has, as usual, four main components: the source, the message, the channel, and then the receiver. But what is different about this model is it has more specific areas. For example, the source, we do have the common skill, communication skills, attitudes, knowledge, social system, culture, all this comes from the source of the knowledge. So, for example, if you want to learn something from YouTube, and then you type whatever topic, let's say graphic design, if you want to use to learn about graphic design in YouTube, and you have something specific in your mind, when you search for this topic in YouTube, you could not find this topic in English or in Malay or whatever, Chinese, okay? You could actually find it in Russian language. So this is going to be one of the social system that could affect you as a receiver not to receive this message. Okay, so there is a problem with the source. Okay, if you can understand English, Malay, Chinese, Indian language, but you cannot understand Russian, so there will be a problem. Okay, this is from the source. And the message, we have the content, the treatment, and the code. What do you mean here is, we sometimes, let's say, have a problem with the message itself. Maybe whatever the teacher is going to simplify the knowledge for us, it's not going to be clear. So in this case, we call it a message problem or a content problem. Okay. And then when we talk about the channel and parallels, we are talking about the senses that we have. We have seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting. We could receive the information from any of these senses, or we could receive it from one only. You can see other people without hearing them. You can learn from them. All right. And then finally, we have the receiver, which is the same, let's say, factors as the source. If you have a problem with the communication skills, whether from the source or the receiver, the communication process is not going to be smooth. It's not going to be successfully done at the end of the day. Okay, guys, it's. Do you have any problem? Do you have any questions regarding the models? Any one of the models? All clear. Good.
Nothing for now, doctor.
All right. Good. Good. Now we do have three main types of communication, which is verbal, nonverbal, and mediated. If I ask you guys a question, what do you think is the most type of communication that we use in our daily basis? Is it verbal, nonverbal, or mediated?
I think it's
Verbal.
non-verbal. Non-verbal.
Okay, nonverbal, and then let me hear from you.
Also,
Nonverbal. Who say nonverbal? You can put the thumbs up. Nonverbal. Okay. Good. Okay. Now, who says it's verbal? Anyone says it's verbal? Okay, I believe no one says verbal. Yeah, it's very true. Most of our communication comes with non-verbal. We eye contact with each other, even if we are totally stranger. If I see you now on UTM campus, I will contact you directly. When I see you, I will look at you. This is non-verbal communication. Okay. So verbal communication when we talk to each other. And when we are talking about verbal communication, it happens only 35% of our whole communication. Can you believe that? So 35% only when we talk to each other or when we communicate directly. Now, we do communicate nonverbal with each other or with strangers, with everybody by so many, let's say, sort of communication. We have facial expressions, we have the tone of voice, we have the movement, we have our hands, eye contact, body language, and so on. When we talk about verbal, we meant to say when we talk to each other, when we use words. Non-verbal, as I mentioned, it's all about body language, eye contact, and so on. When we talk about mediated, we are talking about media or tool as a way of communication. Let's see, for example, TV, movie, computer, internet, radio, and so on. This is the mediated uh, communication. Now, why do we actually need to communicate? We need to communicate with people because we want to live. Communication basically is everything in life. We communicate to educate, we communicate to learn, to express, yes. If you don't communicate with your family, they are going to call you an idiot or a stranger. Okay, so communication is everything. We tend to make relationship with each other, to inform, to exchange knowledge, yeah, exchange thoughts, to change, let's say, other people' life, how they actually look at things, to change their behavior. Okay, good. Now, the purpose of communication, we have the attitude change, which is the main purpose of, let's say, classroom education. When we actually educate our students, we want to change their attitude toward things. Okay, we want to teach them how actually life is, how it how it works, how we do things in life, how we survive. So it's actually about the attitude. And then we have the opinion change to deliver the knowledge, the facts, the principles, whatever skills that we have. And then to change their behavior. How we do change their behavior, we teach them what's right and what's wrong. If we can see some students are, for example, smoking or doing whatever, we can talk to them 1, 2, 3, 10 times until they actually convinced that smoking is not good for them. Then we can change behavior. And then social change. What I mean by social change is to deliver the true knowledge, the feelings that we have to other people, and so on. Why communication is important? Without communication, nothing will be done. No education, no social life, no, let's say, technology, no, nothing, simply nothing. So communication is the core. Yeah, exactly. It's a silent word. Without communication, we wouldn't have any type of interaction or relationship. Okay. If you still remember the noise that might interference in communication process, this noise could be in three main categories. First, we have the human factors, which is anything that is related to the human, not the teacher, him or herself, maybe the student. They are not ready. Maybe the class is, at 8 o'clock, very early in the morning. They are still sleepy. Maybe they are not in the mood, actually. Maybe they have problems in their family. They, so many things that is related to human factors. Okay, they are not ready to receive the information. Okay, And we do have the technical factor, anything that is related to, let's say, our last class, I didn't have the mic, so you could barely hear me. Okay, so this is a technical factor. And then we have the problem with the message itself. Let's say I have a problem with my um, explanation of my language. Okay, this is could be a problem with the message itself. Okay, this is for online discussion. But before we go to that, do you guys have any question regarding one of the two topics that we have discussed today? We have discussed the education technology definition, instruction technology, the meaning of education, teaching and learning, and then we have gone through a communication process, the main components, the different models of communication. So do you guys have any questions? All clear? Okay, let's see. We have a question here. Okay, the last model. What you want me to explain? What is the point that is not clear to you? Okay, now this model has four main components, which are the source, message, the channel, and the receiver. Source and the receiver are considered to be the same. Now, source and receiver, because we are talking about a human, we are talking about some factors that might affect them to receive or send the message. For example, we have, let's say, communication skills. If I'm not fully aware how to communicate with you guys, there will be a problem. And if you are not actually able to understand me talking, this is actually a communication process or communication skills problem. So if it happens from me or from you, it's going to affect the whole circle of transferring the knowledge. This is regarding the source and the receiver. And then we have problem as well with the message and the channel. If you are not able to hear me or see me, or you could actually see me and hear me, you could learn something, but not everything. So it could be a problem with the channel itself. And then finally, it could be problem with the message. Maybe the message, I'm not simplifying the message enough for you to understand. This is what I mean by coding. Coding is actually to simplify the message that I have so that I could be able to send it out to you, and then not only send it out to you, but send it out to you to make sure that you could understand the message. So it's actually a whole process that each step has something to do with the other step, the following step. It's like a circle, you know. If one of these four elements fall out, then there will be a gap. There will be a problem in delivering the uh, the information or the knowledge. Is that clear? Yeah, most welcome. Any other question, guys?
Sir,
Yep.
about the Laswell's model.
That's well.
Um,
Okay.
so the effect is it
The effect
does
here
it
is
mean
the
action?
feedback.
Is it mean the action?
The feedback. Yeah, the feedback. The effect here is the feedback. If there is there is an effect in my students, they have improved, then the feedback is, let's say positive. Then my communication process is successfully done. But if the effect is otherwise, then there's a problem with my communication.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. So we cannot say all the models are the same. As I mentioned, they are pretty much the same components with different perspective. Yeah. Feedback. Listen, one source is the teacher, receiver is the student. Yep. If we talk about education, but outside of the school, the sender could be the father, and then the receiver could be the son or the daughter. Yeah, most welcome, guys. Any other questions? Okay. Channel. Okay. The channel is about the way the message goes. Okay. Now, when we send, it is actually referred to as a medium of communication in other models, but in this model called channel, which is how this message is delivered. Now, the channel here in our class today is the internet, okay? Online learning, WebEx. This is a channel. Now, if I have a problem with my internet or my mic, this could be noise because it's affecting the whole process of communication. So the channel is the way how the message goes from me to you. This is the channel, the way of communication, the medium of communication. Is that clear? Good. So do you guys have any other questions? Okay.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay. And generally, there is a sender, there's a receiver, and this respond and feedback in communication. So, if the response is negative, is it still considered as successful communication?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Okay. If
If
the, well, I think the mic. Wait. Uh,
well, it depends on do you mean the feedback? The communication might be successful, but the feedback could be actually negative sometimes. Let's say I have a class that has, let's say, 40 students, 40. I give my class and then I give a quiz. 35 of the students have got between 9, 8, and 10 out of 10, which is very good. Okay. 5 of them has got very low marks. Okay. Now, this is the feedback of my class because I have conducted an examination after my class. So this is going to be the feedback. If I study the marks and the percentage of all my students, I can see 35% has done very well. Now, my feedback is, or my communication process is successful, because I'm not to be blamed by these 5 students. Maybe they have some difficulties, they have some circumstances. So not all the responses could actually judge the communication process of you. So yeah, it might be negative as well, but it does not mean the communication is not successful. Did I answer your question? Yeah. All right, guys. Do you have any more questions before we move on to e-learning activity? So if we're having online class right now, is this considered as a verbal or mediated? We consider both. Mediated, we are using technology, and then we are using verbal, and then we are using actually body language as well. If you open your camera, look at me, and I'm looking at you, so you are using the 3 types of communication. Because even when we are using face-to-face classes as well, we could be using 3 types of communication as well. Verbal, when we talk, and then let's say body language. If somebody did something wrong, I would be looking at them, this is non-verbal. And then if I use a media in my class, it could be 3 of them, 3 types of communication. All right, welcome. Any other questions? Okay, guys. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to post this question in e-learning. By using one of communication models, explain how can you relate it to the process of teaching or learning. So you need to adapt one model and explain how are you going to use this model to conduct your class. It's simply, you can say that I'm adapting, for example, Shannon model. As a teacher, I am adapting Shannon Weaver model. The sender in this case is me, the teacher. The 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 message that I have is, for example, I want to teach whatever topic, and then my role as a teacher is to simplify this message for my students. So whatever component that you want to explain, you need to relate to the class. For example, the channel that I'm going to use is online learning or WebEx or internet. Noise, I want to make sure there's no technical problem, there's no human factor problems, my voice is clear, there's no internet problem. And then the decoder and the receiver is going to be the students. I need to make sure they are awake, they are not away from the class, because we are online. You need to ask question from time to time. You need to ask question to make sure that they are actually with you, they are following the class. And then finally, I'm going to give an activity or a quiz at the end of the class, so that I make sure the feedback is sorry, the communication process as a feedback is actually successful. Okay, I have explained the channel model and how I can relate this model to my class. Now, it's not necessarily to choose channel. You can use any model and you can relate it to your classroom. And I don't want to, give you a hard time. Just use one line to each component. Just explain each component in one line only. You don't need to write so many words, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one for sender, encoder, channel, decoder, receiver, noise, and feedback. Each one line by your own words. That's it. Obviously, you are considered as the sender. You are the teacher, okay? So you are a teacher in a classroom. You want to teach whatever subject. You want to adopt channel model. I'm going to post the question now, and the question is not necessarily to be answered now. I usually open the questions for a few days, 2 to 3 days. Okay, so take your time. All right, I'm going to post the question now. Do you guys have any question before we end our meeting? Next week we are going to explain about week 3. Yes, any topic, any topic. You can use both. Any, it's actually up to you. You can use a topic, or you can use generally a topic. It's up to you. Thank you, guys. I hope you have learned something from this class, and please take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Next week, please make sure to watch week 3 video before we come to the meeting. Okay, guys? That's it. Thank you very much for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Doctor.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Doctor.
Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor. Have a nice day.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very much,
Doctor.
Thank you,
Doctor.
Doctor.
Thank you, guys.